She always said she hated lavender, called it a grandma scent. So imagine my confusion when I walked into our bedroom and the entire air reeked of it, like someone had spilled a bottle of lavender body oil across the sheets. At first, I thought maybe she'd started trying new things, until I noticed the guest towel in the bathroom, the one we never use, folded neatly, with a single, long auburn hair clinging to it. My wife is blonde. It was a Sunday afternoon, quiet, painfully ordinary. I'd come home early from a charity event she had forgotten to RSVP for, and the house was oddly still. She said she was at brunch with her sister, but her sister had posted a boomerang of mimosas on Instagram with the caption, "Brunch solo equals peace sun sparkles." No one else in the shot. Just her. Now, if this were a movie, I'd be the guy storming into a hotel lobby, fist clenched, ready to punch someone's teeth in. But that's not me. I believe in slow cooking. Pain tastes better when it's marinated. So I wandered through the house like nothing was wrong, like I didn't notice the faint indentation on my side of the mattress or the fact that the Bluetooth speaker was connected to a device I didn't recognize, Jay's iPhone. Not Jake, not Jason, just Jay. Vague enough to be nothing. Specific enough to feel like a punch to the gut. I didn't say a word when she got home. Her lipstick was smudged, her earrings were mismatched, and she was wearing the blouse she swore was too sexy for daylight. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I wanted Thai or pizza for dinner. I told her to surprise me. That night, she curled up next to me like she hadn't spent the afternoon getting railed on our sheets. I didn't pull away. I held her. Not because I loved her, no, that part had begun to rot. I held her because it would make her unravel more slowly. And I wanted to watch every thread come undone. You learn a lot about someone when you stop reacting. She got bolder with time. Started texting in front of me, face-down phone taps, those quick lock screen glances with that little smirk she didn't know she wore. One night, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up with a message. "Next time, I'm not letting you leave with that ass untouched smiling face with horns." The contact name? Jamie. Work. The parentheses were the best part. The desperate need to normalize the lie. She came out of the shower with wet hair and guilt under her nails. I smiled. Told her she looked beautiful. She said, "You're in a good mood tonight." I said, "Why wouldn't I be?" I even made her tea. The worst part? She thought she was smart. Clever, even. Like she'd found a loophole in morality. I didn't argue. I didn't snoop. I didn't accuse. That would have made it easier for her, turned her into a victim, let her paint herself as the woman with a cold, unloving husband. No, I gave her warmth. Smiles. Gentle touches. I made her feel safe. I made her think I was healing. That we were healing. And in return, she let her guard down, bit by bit, day by day. Every lie she told got sloppier. Every excuse more brittle. One night, she left her laptop open. Her email was up. A draft unsent, probably forgotten in the rush to delete the evidence. "I wish I didn't have to lie to him," she wrote. "But he wouldn't understand. He doesn't love me like you do." I stared at the blinking cursor. Then I closed it, gently, like I'd never seen it. See, what she didn't know is that love is not the opposite of hate. Indifference is. And I was deep into it now. I didn't care where she went. I didn't care who she was with. What I cared about was how much she still needed me. How much she still depended on my approval, my presence, my forgiveness. She thought she had power because she had a secret. But secrets only work when the other person is blind. And I wasn't blind. I was wide awake. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. Making her coffee in the mornings. Leaving little love notes. Letting her drown in the illusion that she was getting away with it. Letting her fall deeper into the fantasy that I was weak, clueless, oblivious. That's what makes the crack so delicious. The sound it makes when someone finally realizes the glass has been broken this whole time. You just didn't notice the splintering. And when I bring it all down, when I look her in the eyes and tell her I knew everything, the real twist won't be the betrayal. It'll be the fact that I let it rot. Fed it. Nurtured it. Until the stench became unbearable, for her. Not me. I'll be the one standing in the garden, watching the house burn, holding a match with a smile. We used to fall asleep facing each other, our legs tangled, her breath warm against my neck. Now she sleeps turned away, her body curled toward the edge of the bed like she's trying to escape even in her dreams. But I told myself it was the stress, the seasons, her new job, hormones, the moon, anything but what it really was. I wanted to believe that life was just evolving, that people grow, and growth sometimes looks like silence. I didn't ask questions when she started taking long walks by herself in the evenings, didn't press when she said she needed time to reconnect with her inner voice. At first, it sounded poetic. She was always the deeper one between us, always journaling or reading about self-development. But then she started talking in therapy speak, phrases like emotional bandwidth, personal boundaries, holding space. She said them like mantras, like a woman who just returned from some silent retreat in the Himalayas with a new religion and a moral high ground. And somehow, in this new spiritual awakening, I became the deadweight she was trying to shed. She was still kind, still polite. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, even said, "Love you," but it sounded like she was checking a box. Her eyes stayed on her phone during our dinners. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Worse, she started sighing after them, like I was exhausting her. One day, she bought a new set of clothes, all black, sleek, expensive-looking. I asked if we were going somewhere, and she said, "I'm just reinventing myself. I need to feel powerful again." The word again caught me off guard. I didn't know she had stopped. I didn't know she felt powerless. I didn't know when she stopped sharing that part of herself with me. And then, the gym memberships doubled. She started working out at odd hours, 6 a.m., 9 p.m., and always alone. I offered to join her once, and she laughed. Not a joyful laugh. A laugh soaked in pity. "You wouldn't survive my pace," she said, turning her back before I could reply. Her phone, which used to live face up on the coffee table, now followed her everywhere like a second limb. She started locking the bathroom door, something she never did before. She said it was about privacy, about healthy independence. She started putting passwords on things. Changed the PIN on her phone, added Face ID. When I asked, she smiled and said, "You trust me, right?" And of course I said yes. Because I did. Or maybe I just needed to. She started going out more. Girls' nights, networking events, book club, each one more vague than the last. I asked once, "Which book are you reading?" And she blinked like I'd asked her to recite the periodic table. "It's a rotating theme club," she said. More about ideas than actual books. Whatever that meant. Then there were the purchases. New skincare brands I'd never seen, fancy wine we never drank together, an Uber receipt I found in her coat pocket for a ride across town she'd never mentioned. I told myself she probably had a meeting, a friend in need, a spontaneous decision. Anything but what it probably was. I noticed her social media had gone quiet, but only for me. I wasn't tagged in anything anymore. She used to post about our brunches, our Sunday routines, my goofy morning hair. Now, her page was like a curated museum exhibit of a woman I didn't know. Solo pictures, motivational quotes, selfies with captions like "becoming her," and "soft but not stupid." What the hell did that mean? Was I the stupid part? The soft part? Both? One night, I went to warm up her car before work. It was winter, the frost had painted the windshield white, and I wanted to be thoughtful. Her purse was in the passenger seat, wide open. I wasn't looking for anything, I wasn't. But something red caught my eye. A pack of condoms. Unopened. Expensive brand. Not the one we used. We hadn't used any in years. My hands didn't even shake. I zipped the bag closed, turned the heater on, and walked back inside. She thanked me with a kiss. I told her to have a great day. She smiled. But again, that smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a performance. A glitch in the simulation. We still had our routines. Sunday, grocery shopping. Friday, movie nights. Her head still rested on my shoulder sometimes. She still asked about my day. But there was a delay in her responses now, like a buffering video struggling to play on bad Wi-Fi. I caught her zoning out during my stories. Her fingers twitching toward her phone. She started saying things like, "I just need to focus on me right now," and "not everything has to include both of us." She spoke like we were roommates who had accidentally been cast in a romantic drama. She spoke like she was already gone, and I was the only one who hadn't packed. But I didn't confront her. I told myself she was just going through something. That if I held steady, she'd come back to herself and back to me. I couldn't admit what was happening. I wasn't ready. The cracks were there, but I kept filling them with silence, pretending they weren't spreading. Pretending I didn't hear the creak in the foundation. Pretending the lavender scent was just a new perfume. Pretending the ghost in our bed was still the woman I married. It was a Tuesday night, the kind of evening where the world feels half asleep, and nothing significant is supposed to happen. She was curled on the couch, laptop open, pretending to be deep in a work presentation while I made dinner. Nothing special, just pasta, garlic bread, the usual weeknight rhythm. I was reaching for the Parmesan when I heard her giggle. Not just a laugh, an involuntary sound, one she never made anymore. Not for me. It wasn't loud, but it was alive. Too alive. I turned my head slowly, and there she was, grinning like a teenager, her eyes locked to the screen in a way that told me she'd forgotten I even existed. She didn't see me watching her, standing there with a grater in one hand, stunned not by the sound, but by the expression. Pure joy. The kind of joy she used to save for us. For me. And then she typed something, fast and breathless, like her fingers couldn't keep up with the rush inside her. I don't know what made me move. I wasn't planning to, but I stepped quietly behind her, stepped soft like a hunter in the woods, and glanced at the screen. She didn't even flinch. That's how far gone she was. Her laptop wasn't on a Zoom call. It wasn't a presentation. It was a chat window, Instagram DMs, open with a man named Jay. Just Jay. No last name. No mutual friends. The conversation was recent, messages stacked like bricks, still warm. Her last message was still fresh in the box. You have no idea how hard it is pretending he still matters. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I read it once. Then twice. Not because I needed to confirm what I saw, but because I wanted the words to burn, to carve themselves into my memory like a scar. He had replied with something stupid, some clumsy compliment about her body, her laugh, the way she glowed under pressure. And then came the picture. A live one. Her, taken from the front seat of a car, low-cut top, tongue between teeth, the smile she used to save for me. The timestamp read, today, 3:17 p.m. She told me she was stuck at a work lunch. Stuck. I stared at the screen for 5 full seconds before she finally noticed me. She gasped like a guilty child, slammed the laptop shut so fast it echoed through the room, and turned with a rehearsed panic, stammering, "It's not what you think." But I didn't speak. I didn't shout or cry. I didn't even raise an eyebrow. I just looked at her, really looked, like I was seeing a stranger I'd passed on the street, one I might pity if I weren't so disgusted. And in that moment, something in me, whatever fragile piece still clung to hope, love, reason, died. It didn't bleed. It didn't beg. It just turned cold and quiet. She reached for my arm, spewing some nonsense about how we needed to talk, and how things had gotten confusing. I pulled my arm away, not violently, not even fast. Just a slight movement, like brushing off lint. She paused, sensing the shift, sensing the absence where my warmth used to be. I nodded once. Just once. Not at her, at myself. At the decision I made in that breath. Because something had changed. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more pretending this was salvageable. She had mistaken my silence for weakness, my patience for stupidity. But now the silence was armor. Now, it was calculation. I walked into the kitchen, turned off the stove, poured the boiling pasta water down the sink like I was rinsing out something rotten, and then walked past her without another word. She called after me once, my name, soft and unsure. Like a question. Like I was something she could still reach. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I had everything I needed. She just didn't know it yet. She thought the war hadn't started. But it had. She just missed the first shot. The moment I saw that message, pretending he still matters, something inside me fractured, but it didn't bleed. It calcified. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. That would have been merciful. No, I needed to know how far it went. I needed to excavate every rotten lie, every whispered secret, every fake smile she'd ever offered me in the middle of her betrayal. She thought I would react like a man crushed. But I didn't break. I sharpened. She mistook my silence for passivity, not realizing it was strategy. Every morning, I made her coffee exactly how she liked it, watched her drink it with that same fake smile, and cataloged her every movement like a biologist studying a parasite. The first move was data. Information is ammunition. I accessed our joint phone plans dashboard, something she'd forgotten existed, and pulled her call logs, her text logs, her locations. She had deleted every suspicious message, but the numbers were still there. Jay, who turned out to have a 213 number and a disturbingly consistent habit of calling her during yoga and book club. Always 9:11 p.m., never a minute early. Precision. I noted it. Then I created a second Google account under a fake name, synced it to an old tablet we hadn't used in years, and logged into her location-sharing permissions. She had no idea she was being watched again, only this time by someone who had finally woken up. I told her we should take a space day each week. Her time for self-care, no questions, full trust. She lit up, thinking I was surrendering. But all I needed was consistency. A pattern. On her third space day, She said she was going to an art exhibit downtown. I waited until she left, then checked the tablet. She was nowhere near the gallery. She was in a suburban neighborhood across town, parked for hours in front of a house with a red Jeep out front, license plate ending in 91 Quetzales. I remembered that detail because days later, she came home humming to herself, wearing a new necklace she claimed was from her sister. The next day, I followed up. What did your sister say about the necklace again? I watched her blink. Just once. That half-second stutter in her brain as she scrambled for a lie. She said her sister found it in a vintage shop. Funny, because I'd already checked her sister's Instagram that morning. She was on a trip in Oregon, nowhere near any jewelry stores. I nodded, said it was beautiful. Then I accidentally left the necklace by the bathroom sink, knocked it into the drain, and fished it out the next morning with a magnet. It wasn't silver. It was cheap alloy, probably from a gas station or a street vendor. I started peppering her with subtle traps, asking about days I already knew the truth about. Watching her lie, watching how easily it came. She didn't know I'd logged into her Uber account and saw the drop-off locations. Didn't know I'd called her work one afternoon, disguised my voice, and asked to confirm a meeting she was supposedly attending. She left early today, the receptionist said. Around 2:30. That was the same day she came home gushing about how exhausting her 4 p.m. meeting was. I said nothing, just listened, smiled, took her coat. I started examining our bank statements, noticing little charges, coffee shops on the other side of town, meal delivery services billed to addresses I didn't recognize. I ordered something small to one of them, a bouquet of plain daisies with a note. For the queen of quiet lies. No signature. Just wanted to see if she'd mention it. She didn't. But she was restless that night. Edgy. Clingy even. As if some invisible ghost had walked through her day and rattled her chains. I didn't sleep. I watched her while she slept, mouth slightly open, dreaming who knows what. Probably him. Maybe both of us. I watched her and thought about how fragile her new world really was. Then I turned my attention to her best friend, Sarah, the one who always covered for her. I never believed Sarah was smart enough to pull off real deception, but loyalty makes people stupid. So I created a fake Instagram account. Attractive, believable, a single dad, into travel, with a dog and a decent smile. I DM'd Sarah, just to see if she'd bite. She responded in 5 minutes. We chatted, harmless at first. Then I baited her. You and your friends ever do double dates? She replied with, one of my besties just started seeing this amazing guy. He's married though, so, kinda secret grimacing-faced. I asked if he was worth it. She replied, oh yeah, she's obsessed. Says it's the first time she's felt alive in years. I asked what he did. She said, sales I think. Something with tech. Drives a Jeep. Lives kinda far out, like north of the city. There it was. 91 Quetzales. I didn't respond after that. I'd seen what I needed to. I logged out, deleted the account, and stared at the wall for a while, not out of shock, but out of awe. The theater of it. The sheer volume of betrayal wrapped in self-help jargon and Instagram quotes. She thought she was ascending, evolving, but she was just digging deeper into her own grave. She didn't know I'd seen the whole map. Every alley, every dead end, every lie. She didn't know she was already living in a trap. And I wasn't coming to rescue her. I was just waiting for the door to slam shut. It was a Thursday night when I invited her to dinner, said I'd made reservations at her favorite place, the quiet little Italian restaurant with the candlelit tables and that smug violinist who always played too close. I told her we needed a night to reconnect, to talk about us, and she lit up like I'd handed her a second chance. She wore the dress I bought her last year for our anniversary, red silk, the one she used to claim made her feel dangerous, and I matched her energy, clean-shaven, pressed shirt, warm smile. The host seated us near the window, and I made polite conversation while she drank wine too fast, laughing a little louder than usual, like she was trying to believe the illusion. I let her talk. About work. About stress. About how maybe we needed a weekend getaway, just the two of us. She reached for my hand across the table and held it like we were in love, like she hadn't carved a second life out of our marriage. I nodded gently, then glanced at my watch. On cue, the waiter arrived not with food, but with a small white envelope. No name, no branding, just silence. He placed it in front of her and walked away without a word. Her smile faltered. What's this? She asked, already nervous. Open it, I said, calmly. She hesitated, then slid a manicured finger beneath the seal and pulled out a single photo. High resolution. Clear. Her, in a parking lot, kissing him, the man from the red Jeep. Jay, the same man whose name she had tried to bury under lies and fake work schedules. It wasn't pornographic. It was worse. It was intimate. The kind of kiss that says, I love you, and I'm not afraid. She froze, her face drained of all color, eyes locked on the image like she was hoping it would catch fire in her hands. I said nothing. Just watched. The silence devoured her, and she finally looked up and whispered, it's not what it looks like. That was phase 1. Denial. Textbook. I didn't blink. I let her fill the vacuum. We were just talking, she added, her voice cracking, the photo trembling slightly between her fingers. It was stupid. A moment. It didn't mean anything. There it was, justification. Phase 2. She reached across the table again, but I pulled my hand back slowly, like recoiling from something infected. Her eyes darted around, searching for something, an exit, a lifeline, a version of me she could still manipulate. You've been so distant lately, she said, her voice rising just enough to catch the attention of the table next to us. I've been feeling invisible. You don't listen. You're never really there. Blame. Phase 3. She was unraveling, and I remained still, composed, the embodiment of quiet devastation. I tilted my head slightly and asked, is that why you told him I didn't matter? Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I leaned in just a bit, lowering my voice so only she could hear, and added, I read everything. Every message. Every lie you whispered when you came home and kissed me with his mouth still on yours. She blinked fast, like she could erase what I just said by not hearing it properly. Then, without warning, she laughed, harsh and bitter. Wow, she said, voice now thick with something darker, you really went full psycho, didn't you? Tracking me? Reading my messages? You think this is normal? Mocking confidence. Phase 4. She thought if she shifted the spotlight, turned me into the villain, she could regain control. Maybe if you hadn't been so boring, so emotionally robotic, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere, she snapped, loud enough for people to glance our way. Jay listens. Jay makes me feel alive. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because that was the final card she had. And it was so weak, it didn't even register. I leaned back in my chair, folding my napkin slowly, deliberately. Tell me, I said, voice calm as ever, when you said he makes you feel alive, does that happen before or after you call him from the parking lot like a teenager avoiding curfew? Her breath caught. Just for a second. I continued. Or when you beg him to keep things quiet so you don't lose your safety net, at home? That landed. Her face contorted, a twisted blend of horror and fury, like I just read her diary out loud in church. Fear. Phase 5. Her wine glass shook in her hand as she stared at me, all the illusions finally shattered, the stage lights off, the costume slipping. You don't get to judge me, she whispered, barely audible now, desperate. I leaned in one last time, eyes locked on hers, and said, I'm not judging you. I'm watching you drown in everything you built. I'm just the one who removed the life raft. She opened her mouth again, maybe to beg, maybe to fight, but I stood up slowly, placed $100 bill on the table without breaking eye contact, and turned to leave. But I didn't walk away yet. I paused by the doorway, just long enough for her to realize something. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of her descent. And I hadn't even started yet. She came home that night like a hurricane made of apologies and accusations, slamming the door behind her with enough force to rattle the picture frames, heels clicking against the floor like gunshots, eyes wide with fear wrapped in fury. So that's it, she shouted, tossing her purse onto the counter like it had betrayed her too. You set me up like some kind of trap? What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't answer. I was in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, and the silence made her more furious than any insult could have. She stormed toward me, voice rising, hand shaking. You've been watching me? Spying? That's disgusting. Still nothing from me. Just a sip of water. A slow blink. She needed me to argue. She needed a villain. Without one, she was just a liar screaming in an empty room. You smothered me, she snapped, venom dripping from every word. You made me feel like I was drowning. Always there, always expecting something, like I owed you my happiness. I turned my head slightly, met her eyes, and said, no one smothers someone they barely touch. That stopped her for half a second. Just half. She blinked, the insult landing somewhere behind her ribcage, and then the rage surged again. You know what? You were boring. Predictable. Passionless. Every day with you was like watching paint dry. I needed something real. Something that made me feel alive. Another sip of water. I placed the glass down gently. Then why did you lie every single time you left to see him? She stammered, just for a moment, and then the claws came out. Because you're weak, she screamed. You're not a man. A real man would have kept me. Made me want to stay. Not sat there like a stone every time I tried to talk about how I felt. I stepped closer, not threateningly. Just enough to make her feel how calm I was, how unbothered I had become. A real woman doesn't need to cheat to be heard, I said. A real woman speaks before she spreads her legs for someone else. She flinched like I'd slapped her. She was unraveling now, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal, breathing hard. You're twisting everything. This was never just about sex. He listened to me. He cared. I raised an eyebrow. So why is he still hiding you? She stopped walking. Her face drained of color. Because she knew I was right. She was the secret. She was the second life. She wasn't being loved. She was being used. And I had let her believe otherwise. Let her drown in her fantasy until the water filled her lungs. She tried again, softer this time, voice cracking. You were my best friend, she whispered. We built a life together. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I nodded, slowly. It did. Until you lit a match and smiled at the fire. Her lip trembled, her entire body shaking now. Not from sadness, but from fear. She had thrown every tactic she had. Blame, guilt, rage, manipulation, and none of it landed. Because I didn't care anymore. I wasn't trying to fix us. I wasn't trying to understand. I was watching her decay, and she could feel it. So what now? She asked, desperation finally creeping into her voice. You going to divorce me? Tell everyone? Ruin my life? I tilted my head. You already did that. I'm just letting it play out. She rushed forward then, furious again. You think you're better than me? She spat. You think being cold makes you powerful? You're pathetic. At least I felt something. At least I tried. I laughed, quietly, bitterly. You didn't try. You ran. You lied. You fed another man the pieces of me you stole while pretending to still love me. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. There was nothing left to say. Every insult had turned on her. Every manipulation exposed. And I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I wasn't asking why. I was done playing the fool in her drama. She stood there, shrinking in the silence. And for the first time, she looked small. Not in stature, but in spirit. All her power had been tied to the belief that I needed her. That I'd fight for her. That I'd break without her. But now she saw the truth. That I had already left, even if my feet hadn't moved. And that terrified her more than any punishment ever could. Revenge, when done right, isn't loud, it's administrative. It's paperwork, timing, silence, and a smile you wear while handing someone their own ruin wrapped in civility. The night after she collapsed in the kitchen, screaming and spinning in circles of blame, I didn't drink. I didn't rage. I opened my laptop and began. The first step was collection. I compiled everything, screenshots of texts, audio recordings from our smart home system, location logs, email drafts she never deleted, and her own photos from that day in the parking lot, the kiss frozen in pixels. I created a folder labeled Archive and backed it up in 3 locations: hard drive, cloud, and encrypted USB. I took my time. I wasn't hiding. I wanted her to wonder what I was doing behind that screen at midnight, and I gave her no answers. The next day, I visited the bank. Quietly removed her name from every joint account that wasn't legally locked. I opened new ones in my name only. Canceled her card. Transferred half, exactly half, nothing illegal, into a separate account she couldn't touch. Then I contacted a financial advisor and a divorce attorney, both of whom came recommended by men who had walked this road before me. I gave them everything. There was no guesswork, no drama, just dates, facts, names, figures. The attorney nodded as he looked over the file and said, "This is surgical." I smiled. That's the goal. I changed the passwords on everything she never thought to memorize. Netflix, Amazon, our shared photo drives. She logged in one day and found herself locked out of everything we once called ours. A small cut. Nothing fatal. Just enough to sting. I then went for the utilities: gas, electric, water, all in my name. I scheduled them to be disconnected from our place the morning after she thought I was leaving for a business trip. She would wake up, shower half finished, fridge warm, lights dead. just enough to make her feel the instability under her feet. I drafted my letter to her boss next. Not dramatic, just factual. I explained that she had been engaging in a long-term affair with a man she had met through a company-sponsored event, and that she had been misusing work hours and resources to conduct personal business, often under the pretense of client meetings. I attached timestamped evidence, call logs, photos, GPS data from company vehicles she used. No accusations. Just data. I sent it from a burner email with an anonymous tip headline and marked it confidential. Her HR department prides itself on ethics. She'd once bragged about it. I reached out to her parents next, not with anger, but with measured sorrow. I sent them a private email, attaching the evidence, and explained that I would be filing for divorce due to sustained infidelity and emotional abuse. I told them I respected them too much to let them hear it from her first, through whatever lie she would spin. They replied within hours, her mother heartbroken, her father cold and clipped, apologizing for her choices and wishing me strength. I left it at that. Then came the friends. I selected 5, the ones who mattered, the ones she hadn't poisoned yet with her growth journey narrative, and invited them to lunch. I didn't bring up the affair until halfway through, casually sliding my phone across the table with the chat logs open. No explanation. Just proof. The silence at that table was better than applause. One of them said, "She always made it sound like you were distant. Unavailable." I nodded. That's what she told herself to sleep at night. They didn't argue. I sold the second car, mine, technically, and used the funds to prepay legal fees and rent a new place. A small, sleek apartment across the city, lease signed under a trust. She wouldn't find it. She wouldn't be invited. I gave my lawyer the final instructions, serve her on a Thursday morning, right before her quarterly review at work. Right when the walls would begin to truly close in. I didn't want to humiliate her in public. I wanted her to feel the walls tilt, the floor buckle, the sky press down inch by inch. I even scheduled the movers for the same day. While she was busy unraveling at work, 2 clean-cut professionals would strip the house bare of my belongings, including the one thing she never thought I'd take, the custom-framed wedding photo. She would come home to an empty closet, no power, and silence. Not anger. Not a goodbye letter. Just emptiness. Her phone would light up with one final text from me. Check the mailbox. Inside, she'd find divorce papers, filed and ready. No fight. No discussion. Just the end, delivered with efficiency. She still thought she had time. Still thought we were in the talk-it-out phase. But the game had already ended. She just hadn't looked at the scoreboard. The charity gala was her favorite event of the year. She called it her glam night. The one evening she could dress like she mattered, where the city's upper crust gathered to sip wine, flash their veneers, and pretend their lives weren't rotting behind designer labels and 6-figure divorces. She wore emerald green, her power color, the one that made her eyes look like something out of a painting, and she walked into that ballroom like royalty, high heels clicking with the rhythm of someone who still believed the throne was hers. I walked beside her, black suit, quiet expression, hand on her lower back just enough to look like support. She didn't know the truth yet, not the full scope. She thought the worst had passed, that the storm was over, that maybe we were finding a way back. That's how deep her delusion ran. But the room was already wired. I had arrived 2 hours earlier, met with the event coordinator, a mutual friend of ours who, after seeing the evidence, turned from her ally into my silent accomplice. I didn't have to bribe him. I just showed him her messages. One photo. The kiss in the parking lot. He didn't ask for more. He just nodded, face hard, and said, "I'll time it right." Everyone important was there. Her boss. Her colleagues. The friends she still thought were loyal. Even her parents, who she hadn't spoken to in days since I sent them the full package. She assumed they were just processing. No, they were preparing. Preparing to cut her off in the moment that mattered most. And now it had arrived. She moved through the room like a performer on stage, laughing a little too loudly, fingers brushing arms, posing for photos, basking in compliments about how radiant she looked. I stood close enough to be seen but distant enough to remain unreadable. People greeted me with quiet nods, brief handshakes, and the occasional look that said, "I know." She didn't notice. Not at first. She was too busy trying to reclaim the narrative. But then, during her speech, because of course she had volunteered to give one, she stood at the front, mic in hand, telling the audience how much commitment, trust, and loyalty meant to her in today's fractured world. I was in the back of the room. The lights dimmed slightly. The screen behind her came alive. At first, it looked like a slideshow, a soft fade-in of her smiling at various past events, some of me, some with friends, something sweet and sentimental. And then the next slide came up. Her text. You have no idea how hard it is pretending he still matters. There was silence. Then the photo. Her, kissing him. The man in the Jeep. Zoomed in. Undeniable. Then another. Her messages. A timeline. GPS data. Call logs. Every frame stitched together like a eulogy. She turned around mid-sentence and froze. Her breath caught in her throat, and the mic dropped with a soft thud. The audience didn't gasp. They didn't scream. They just watched. That was worse. The weight of 100 eyes pressing down on her like judgment itself. She tried to laugh, just a small, choked sound, then turned to the coordinator and hissed something, but he just shrugged and walked away. Her boss stood and walked out. Her friends didn't move. Her parents didn't even blink. Her mother looked away. Her father folded his arms. She spun toward me, her face ghost white, and saw me standing there, hands in my pockets, calm. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. I just watched. She stumbled off the stage, heels catching on the carpet, eyes scanning the room like she could undo it all if she just explained fast enough. She grabbed the mic again, voice cracking as she said, "This was taken out of context. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain." But no one asked her to. No one cared to hear it. That was the cruelty of it all, not the exposure, but the apathy. No one rallied. No one saved her. Her voice rose. You don't understand. He made me feel worthless. I wasn't myself. Still, nothing. Her best friend, the one she used to whisper secrets to, turned and walked away. One by one, the crowd thinned. She dropped the mic again and looked at me, desperation crawling up her throat like bile. Why are you doing this? She asked, tears finally breaching the edge of her mascara. Why would you humiliate me like this? I stepped forward slowly, only 2 feet, and said, this wasn't humiliation. This was revelation. You did the first part on your own. She covered her mouth, staggered backward, and then the final blow came, not from me, but from the man she'd thrown everything away for. He entered late, unaware of what had just played out, and she ran to him like salvation. Jay, she called, grabbing his arm. Please, we have to talk. He looked at the screen, then at her, then pulled his arm away. One glance. One word. Don't. And he left. Just like that. No scene. No farewell. Just the door closing behind him and her standing there, broken, abandoned, exposed. She turned back to the crowd, but there was no one left. Just me. Still standing. Still watching. And that was the moment it hit her. That it wasn't the world that destroyed her. It was me, staying quiet. Me, letting her spiral. Me, not lifting a single hand to save her. Because now, I didn't have to. The damage was already done. And she did most of it herself. The restaurant was too small for what was about to happen, but that made it perfect. Her parents were there, mine too, an awkward but agreed-upon family dinner she insisted on hosting to save face, pretending the fallout hadn't scorched the last bit of her credibility. She wore white, like she was still innocent, like dressing soft could make her lies disappear. Jay was there too, like a ghost at his own funeral, sitting near the edge of the table, barely touching his drink, eyes darting like a kid about to bolt from detention. She smiled too much, laughed too loud, did everything in her power to force a scene of normalcy into a space filled with people who had seen everything. My mother sat stiff, my sister silent but seething. Her father hadn't said a word since we arrived. Her mother kept wringing her napkin like she was trying to strangle the truth into submission. I stayed quiet until dessert. That's when she leaned over and tried to touch my hand, whispering, maybe it's time we all just moved on. That's when I finally stood. The chair didn't scrape. It glided. Calm. Measured. And then I looked at her, really looked, and said, move on? You mean like how you moved on every time you told me you were at therapy but were actually in his car? The room dropped 10 degrees. Everyone froze. She laughed, dry, strained. That's not what happened. Jay shifted, already half standing. Sit down, I told him, without raising my voice. He did. Her eyes widened. You said this wasn't about public humiliation, she snapped, already unraveling. You promised too. I cut in, sharper now, stepping around the table. You promised vows. Loyalty. Truth. Instead, you gave me excuses, gaslighting, and a GPS trail of your betrayal. She stood now too, hands clenched. I was unhappy. You think I cheated because everything was perfect. No, I said. You cheated because you're weak. Because lying was easier than being honest. Because the fantasy of being desired meant more to you than the man who built a life with you. Gasps from her friends. Her mother covered her mouth. My father looked away. You never saw me, she shouted, voice cracking. I was dying inside and you just ignored it. I turned to her parents. Did she tell you she sent him money? That she took it from our joint account and gave it to Jay to help with his business idea? Because I have the bank records. Her father's jaw dropped. Jay stood abruptly, but my brother blocked his path. You need to leave, he told him. Jay looked at her, expecting backup. None came. Wait, she said, voice shaking now. That was just temporary. I meant to tell you. You meant to keep lying, I corrected. Like you did when you said you were at your sister's house, when you were actually at a hotel in Midtown. Room 409, right? Lavender-scented lotion on the sheets. I can still smell it. Stop it, she hissed. This is sick. You're doing this in front of everyone. You brought them, I said. You wanted the audience. Now you have it. She turned to the room, spinning in a storm of her own making. He's insane, she barked. He's obsessed with control. He's been tracking me, stalking me, deflection, I said coldly. A last resort. When you have no more lies, you play the victim. I am the victim, she shrieked. You manipulated me. You turned our marriage into a prison. I took one step forward. A prison? Then why'd you keep the keys? Why did you come home every night, look me in the eyes, tell me you loved me, right after you let him unzip your dress? Her face twisted. She tried to speak, but it all collided in her throat. Tears fell now, but no one moved to comfort her. Not even her mother. Especially not her father. You disgust me, he muttered under his breath. She spun to Jay again, desperate now. You said you'd be here for me. But Jay was already gone. He'd slipped out during the chaos. No one stopped him. She turned back to the table, breath hitching. Please, someone say something. Silence. Even the staff stood still. My sister finally spoke. You're not sorry. You're just exposed. The final blow. Her knees buckled slightly. She sat down slowly, shaking, a ruined queen at the table of her own coronation. I looked around once, then back at her. You thought I'd explode, I said. But silence cuts deeper, doesn't it? And then I left, not rushed, not dramatic, just the measured exit of a man who knew he'd already won. She didn't follow. Couldn't. The room watched me go. And behind me, all that was left was the wreckage she called her life. She vanished for a few weeks after the fallout, disappeared from social media, from mutual friends' lives, from every space she used to dominate with that fake laugh and those curated, authentic posts about love, loyalty, and growth. I heard whispers from a distance. She was fired within days of the gala, HR citing reputational risk, though everyone knew it was because they saw the evidence with their own eyes. The friends she'd clung to during the affair unfollowed her in silence, blocked her number, ghosted her completely. Even the ones who'd once envied her now crossed the street to avoid the stench of scandal. The gym revoked her membership over some incident no one would elaborate on, and her family, once blindly loyal, returned unopened letters and ignored calls. Her mother stopped responding after receiving a photo of the hotel room bill. Her father told me privately she's not the daughter I raised. As for Jay, the brave, poetic, attention-hungry Jay, he evaporated the second the light got too bright. No texts. No calls. His number disconnected. She was left clawing through the ashes of a fantasy, suddenly aware that she'd set fire to everything real to chase something that only ever existed in shadows. Eventually, someone told me she moved to a smaller city 2 hours away, took a job at a vape shop under a fake last name, dyed her hair darker like that would erase who she was. She looked tired in the one photo I saw, shoulders slumped, makeup smudged, a forced smile that didn't touch her eyes. Then, one night, a month to the day since the gala, I got a knock at my door. I didn't answer right away. I watched her through the peephole, standing there in a raincoat that didn't hide how soaked she was. Hair stuck to her face. Eyes red. Her hand trembled as she raised it to knock again. I opened the door slowly. Said nothing. She looked up like she'd just surfaced from drowning. Please, she said, voice cracking immediately. I don't have anywhere else to go. I didn't know what I had until it was gone. I was stupid. So stupid. You were everything. You were home. I stared at her, not with anger, not even disappointment, just a kind of quiet disassociation, like looking at a place I used to live but no longer recognize. I love you, she said, stepping forward. I never stopped. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. But I know now. And I know I want to fix this. I'll do anything. Just give me a chance. Just one. Her voice cracked again, tears now mixing with the rain. Please, she whispered. Just say something. I let the silence hang in the air long enough for her to taste the depth of what she'd done. Then I finally spoke. The woman I loved died the day she smiled in his car. She gasped softly, shoulders crumbling forward. You don't mean that. I tilted my head. I didn't just mean it. I buried it. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. So, that's it. You really don't care anymore? My voice stayed even. I care the way people care about an old photo, something you glance at once in a while and wonder how you ever thought it mattered so much. She wiped her face. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I nodded once. That makes two of us. I shut the door without slamming it. Just a quiet, final click that echoed louder than any scream. She didn't knock again. Didn't cry out. Just stood there for a few more seconds and walked away into the rain. And I watched her fade into the night, a ghost of her own making, haunted not by what I took, but by what she threw away. That's how it ends. No fireworks. No drama. Just a man who stayed steady, and a woman who finally had to face her own reflection without the mask. To those of you listening, thank you for sticking with me through the storm. I'm curious, where are you from? And did this story hit as hard as it was meant to?